Hello, welcome to another briefing. I intend this to be my first YouTube briefing in quite a while. So thank you to those who have remained subscribed to the channel and are interested in these little briefings that I do. Um, just a side note, I'm halfway through my certificate in achievement of weather forecasting through Penn State. So I am halfway to being a certified weather forecaster. So I have taken classes already. I've already taken two classes on general meteorology and also tropical meteorology. So I am becoming more and more familiar with these things and how they work. So I am more than just a guy on YouTube talking about the weather now, and I intend to be a certified forecaster by the end of this year. So um, we are seeing here the first thing we notice on this satellite image pulling up most of the Pacific Ocean and then being able to see North America with pretty much anywhere from actually the very north of South America all the way up into northern Canada and Alaska and such. And we can see this trough out over the ocean. Um, this is associated with the cold pool of air aloft. It's a dip in the jet stream. You kind of pick out what the jet stream is doing. If you look at the map here, just based on the pattern of these clouds here, when you get used to looking at this enough, you kind of figure it out. It's doing something like this, essentially. There's a big, powerful storm over here, the Toronto region. Um, this looks like an extra moisture there. So there's a big ridge of high pressure, another thing we're noticing here. It's keeping it warm and dry over most of the west coast, except for where there's valley fog trapped in parts of the Central Valley there, where it's actually cold and damp because that's trapped under that high pressure. And so this is kind of the pattern that's persisted, at least for the West Coast. This is a pattern that's persisted for the last few weeks, really. And we're looking at that pattern finally starting to break, finally starting to shift with this trough of low pressure getting a little closer and starting to at least bring some more moisture and some very concentrated moisture at that. This is why these things get called atmospheric rivers, and unfortunately, the term does get overused a lot, which kind of waters it down. But this is a classic atmospheric river when you have a tap of moisture going all the way from out by the Hawaiian Islands straight up to, like in this case, it's going into Oregon right now, roughly Oregon and Washington. But and last week there were um, serious flooding issues in western Washington um, because of this stream of moisture straight from the tropical regions, not even the subtropics. I believe this is the tropics actually. If you're below 30 degrees in latitude here, um, straight from the tropics into the Pacific Northwest, and then you have the dynamics of the lift from this upper level low coming in right here. That just, it'll give you torrential rain, and that is looking like it's going to shift a little further south over the next few days. So I'm going to go ahead and show what I was just showing here on this satellite image. We're going to find this on the computer model. So this is roughly right about now on the European deterministic model projection. The European is a pretty good computer model. You can't put all your bets into it, especially when you go more than 5 days out, as with any operational model. It's just more to give an idea of what's going on and what the trend could look like. And so I want to point out what we were just seeing on satellite is when we're seeing the big trough. It's probably, I think it's kind of, yeah, it's like might be out of frame on this. But there was that big trough that we were seeing out over the ocean. And then there was that ridge, so I'm gonna kind of show here. It's basically what we're seeing. There's the ridge over the west, but there is moisture going into Washington, Oregon, and Idaho at this point. Then we have a trough over the plains. Powerful storm system up downstream of that shortwave trough over the there's a little vortex over South Dakota, and that there's a powerful mid-latitude cyclone. Looks like exiting Wyoming right now, moving towards the northeast. Bring heavy snow to parts of the upper Midwest and into Canada as well. And then you have the jet stream kind of flattening out over here. Another storm up here. Have sort of a ridge over off of the east coast. So and you see it's basically this if you look out towards the west coast, this system that's over the Pacific Northwest now, that ends up pushing out, and then we have a system behind it. See, we have another stream. That stream of moisture kind of sets up again, but further south, right into potentially the Bay Area, maybe just north of the Bay Area. We're going to see how that plays out. We'll have to see over the next few days. And then it wants to bring another wave of moisture, another potentially a pretty powerful mid-latitude cyclone right on the edge of the trough that starts tilting here. You can see on this particular projection, if you look out towards Tuesday, you can see there's this tilt that starts to happen here, where this cold air wants to start making a move in to the Pacific Northwest, and now is into California, and it is downstream of this trough here where you have a very, very strong divergence aloft, which ends up basically takes a lot of mass out of the atmosphere, and you end up getting a powerful mid-latitude cyclone, low pressure system right here. And it looks like that's going to move towards the Bay Area, so that could bring quite a windy, powerful, wet storm. It would start out probably relatively warm. I would say snow levels maybe 7,000, then go down to 5,000, but it's a little early to really get into specific snow levels because it's really going to depend on where the cold air sets up and just how warm the atmosphere is when this comes in, and how, if it cools, how much it cools. And then then we would get a pretty cold system behind that, because that's riding the cold side of the jet. If that were to play out, that would be a nice cold system right around Christmas Day pretty much. But when you're this far out, it's hard to narrow down the exact dates. You can't really do that. But you can see the pattern. You can see it shifting to a wetter and eventually colder pattern here for the West Coast, which is encouraging. Like, if we go out to like what this projection has for Christmas, take it with a grain of salt, but big trough here over the West Coast with a ridge over kind of starting the ridge over the Gulf of Alaska, so not really a positive negative PNA here. It might be more neutral, but this looks favorable for rain. I mean, it might be close to that. It's definitely a lot wetter than what we had what we've been having the last few weeks, with that nice trough here, ridge out over the Gulf of Alaska, sort of, kind of west of the Gulf of Alaska. And there's a bit of a tilt to that. And then you have mostly ridging, so mostly warming for it might actually be a pretty mild Christmas for most of the country, the United States here. Another system potentially going into maybe parts of Ontario and Saskatchewan, I believe, and maybe another system off of Newfoundland or Nova Scotia. I'm not really great with my Canadian geography. But this storm track seems to be mostly to the north once you get out over the Midwest and the East Coast. That's going to be milder conditions for them. But very interesting. We have an interesting, finally more interesting weather setup over the West Coast here. And this could actually be a pretty windy system early next week into Tuesday because we have a pretty deep low pressure system pretty close to the coastline off the Bay Area here. So finally some pretty exciting weather for my area, and then maybe another low that would be a little further north, but that could still bring some wind depending on how that plays out. I think this is a little closer look in here. Yeah, there's that first one on, I mean, this is a ways out still, but okay, so we get something this weekend. I mean, we get some good rain. It was just kind of a steady stream of rain, warm rain. It's not really a front. We don't see the front really progress south. And then we have another pretty warm system, but there starts to be some cold air. We have more cold air coming in. You start to see snow in the Sierra. And then that other low pressure system there, see, I mean, this would be pretty windy, and this could be windy too, depending on where this low sets up. But looking at that cold air aloft, looking at these blue thickness lines, that's the colder air starting to come down and combine with that moisture coming off of the Pacific to give snow. I would say, based on this, it's looking like maybe 5,000 feet or lower. It's too early to tell, but it's really going to depend how this plays out, because sometimes the computer model will show something really cold like this and really nice, and then it will end up being a warm storm or will end up actually not really happening. So you have to take it with a grain of salt when you're this far out, but this looks like a very interesting pattern, so I'm definitely hoping that something like this does play out. Anyways, that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're able to get something out of this, and I'll see you next time.